Hi there, I'm Lydia and this is IGCSE English, teaching last-minute people first language and second language English. There are 4 things I would like everyone to memorize. Write it down, paste it around your room, in your toilet or wherever just so you remember them. The acronym is CARS. C-A-R-S, CARS. Number 1, to score a level 6 for writing, you have to make sure you know your character. Look in the question and identify your character. Are you a teacher? Are you a student? Are you a journalist? A parent? The question will tell you your character. Number 2, who is your audience? Your character will be affected by the audience you are writing to. Number 3, it's affected both by number 1 and number 2. Number 3, register. Your register is how you sound like in your essay piece, and that is affected both by who you are as well as who you're writing to. Imagine if you're a student and you're writing to a teacher. Well then, your register would be more polite. Number 4, style. Are you going to be writing a letter, a news report, an interview? There are so many different types of styles for writing. Make sure you have CARS in your hand before you do your past papers. Let's look at the question as a recap. Imagine you have a rich relative who is considering whether or not to reserve a seat on one of the first tourist space flights. This is where you can see the focus of the question. And they have asked you for your views. Write a letter to your relative. In your letter, you should evaluate the ideas and opinions in both texts. Give your own views to your relative based on what you have read. Base your letter on what you have read in both texts, but be careful to use your own words. Address both of the bullet points. Write about 250 to 350 words. Up to 15 marks are available for content of the answer and up to 25 marks for the quality of your writing. These were the points as well as the evaluation that we looked at in part 2. And you would see that I have two points here which I have highlighted. I'll explain that later. I have already finished the letter and I would like to show you some things that I do before I write my full answer. Remember, it's 15 marks for the content of the answer. Therefore, I would pick 2 points per insert A, and then insert B, take another 2 points. Among these points here, how would I choose which points to pick? Well, I would advise students to pick points they were most confident with and evaluate those points. The examiner report is clear that the assessment of the points is vital for evaluation. That is why we don't end up going and writing about everything, but we pick and choose whichever one we can actually evaluate. Before we go through the full letter where I read it out to you, you can see through the colors here that each paragraph has a point, an evaluation as well as a response. Reminder here is PER, point, evaluation and response. For me, I would advise students to follow a framework as they write, and this can be seen clearly through the colors. If you don't follow a framework, sometimes students, you may miss out on writing an evaluation, or sometimes you may miss out on writing a response. Therefore, I would follow this kind of framework. As long as you do it in an orderly way, I think that it will increase your content marks. Also, students who don't make sure that they are evaluating every point would seem like they are just regurgitating the points from the insert or even sometimes paraphrasing the points. This is a letter to your relative. There's no specification of whether it is an uncle or an auntie. I just chose auntie. So the letter starts off with the first paragraph being the introduction paragraph. Dear auntie, it has been so long since we last spoke. How are you? It's a typical way to start a letter. And I just jumped right into it. I've done some research on whether you should make reservations to be a pioneer on a commercial flight to space, and would like to base my thoughts on 2 articles I've read recently. So this is where you introduce the 2 articles, which are the inserts. Then you just paraphrase the title of the inserts. One article talks about the advantages of traveling to space, while the other is an article citing the disadvantages. So remember, the first point that I have chosen is new generation of engineers, and it's about increasing jobs in this industry. So there is some argument that supporting these commercial flights will enable engineering jobs to diversify and increase. And then my evaluation of this point is, as more people enjoy these experiences, demand will go up and naturally supply will need to meet the demand. However, this can be said for any other service or product in the world. So when you're talking about more jobs, or you're using more jobs as a reason to support these commercial flights, I am providing the evaluation that, well, this is not a reason that is special to this service that you are providing. It's the same for any other service out there. The more people want it, the more demand there will be, and naturally more jobs will be created so that people can service that demand. And then I go on to a response. Naturally, the law of economics applies across all markets. For example, so I'm putting the why before my personal response. Sometimes I would say students would put their personal response and then only the why. It's up to you. For example, if people buy more electric cars, electrical engineering jobs can reach new heights, both numerically, that means the number of jobs will increase, and technologically. So if you see here, I basically use what they are saying about engineering jobs to increase and diversify for a different example here, that is electrical cars. I don't see how this argument can be used solely for space flights. That is my personal response. Okay, on to the next point. According to the astronauts interviewed in the articles, the view of Earth's fragility against space has inspired people to love the Earth more when they return, as in return back to Earth. And I put the evaluation here. I understand that this view is not something we can purchase or replicate if we have not been to space. So this is an assessment, in some ways, like somewhat agreeing to the point. And this comes back to the point here. Hence, the writer has argued that space tourism would directly affect pollution and climate change for the better. This is my personal response. I find this difficult to understand since it is widely known that, this is the evaluation, space vehicles cause a lot of gas emissions which negatively affect the environment, let alone pollution. And this is my reasoning of this personal response I have. It seems ironic that the writer would use space tourism to argue for climate change then. The third point, in the latter article, which is the second article, as I have introduced it here, the second article is the one that has the disadvantages. In the latter article, the critique against space tourism is vehement. That the cost of patrons going into space is unjustifiable. I definitely paraphrase the point. I didn't take it directly from the text. While I acknowledge that the costs are indeed sky high, this is a personal response, and then here comes the evaluation. I've also lived long enough to know that certain products and services will always have an astronomical price tag. These products and services are there to create a standard that few in society are rich enough to afford them. So what I'm saying here is that the costs of patients going to space cannot be used against supporting space tourism, because some costs are just high, because it creates a standard that only certain kinds of people can pay for that service or product. And then this is my reasoning. Therefore, this inflation of costs does not show an accurate price in the first place and should not be used as a reason to argue against going to space. So I'm finding fault basically with this argument that the cost of going to space is unjustifiable. I'm basically saying, well, it is inflated. It's an inflated cost, so it's not an accurate price tag. Therefore, you shouldn't use it as a reason against going to space. Lastly, the last argument is another argument against going to space is that the money millionaires are willing to spend can be used to save lives, help poverty. And that's the last point here. Relieving poverty, yeah. And again, I paraphrased it. I didn't use the words from the insert. You shouldn't use words from the insert too when you're writing your points in the essay. For me, donations have always been a charitable endeavor, but the donations only solve the effect of a bigger issue. So I'm giving a response to the point, and this is my assessment of what donations are really doing. Donations have no way to solve the cause of the social problems. Re-education, better infrastructure, more opportunities are not things that millionaires can create in society. Only governments can do that. And this is my reasoning. The second red highlighted part is my reasoning for saying this is that donations are just solving an effect. To say that millionaires should donate money just because they can is a narrow-minded way of looking at a bigger problem in a country. Lastly, both articles present valid points to take into consideration, which is what I put here. For me, expanding into space tourism could mean advancement of technology and expansion of human knowledge. So just take note of the modal verb I'm using here. I don't say it will definitely mean advancement because this is still a very new area. I'm just saying it could. So it's just a probability there. But there are many global risks to calculate. I do take into account the second insert that cited disadvantages. Taking care of the environment and helping the next generation enjoy nature is our responsibility. There should be a safe way to enjoy the space tourism industry while prioritizing the next generation needs. Do let me know what you decide in the end, Auntie. I hope you stay healthy in the meantime. And sincerely, Harvey. And this is the essay once again. If you would like to take a screenshot, you can go ahead and do that of just the evaluation paragraphs here. Okay, that's the end. Thank you for watching and hope this really helped you out.